this episode, I visited Chase Hughes, a brainwashing and human behavior expert who trained U.S. intelligence agencies on psyops, influence, and persuasion. And we talked about how to brainwash yourself into a new identity to become unstoppable, what Elon Musk's and Trump's subtle behavior cues expose about their actual relationship, our guru of the week, who is the OG pickup artist wearing fuzzy hats to seduce women, and so much more. This is not an interview, but simply our usual driven podcast format where we dive into fun and interesting topics, and this time with Chase Hughes as my guest and co-host. So put in your seatbelts, let's get into it. You've worked with a fighter to basically brainwash him into, I guess, a new identity where, similar to Mike Tyson, he steps into the ring and he doesn't know fear and he's just unstoppable.
Yeah.
I remember you saying that at the weigh-in, when his wife saw him, she just instinctively grabbed her child out of fear.
Yeah.
Just asking for a friend. How would someone do that? Like at home? Or like, how did you do that?
It's taken a lot of practice and a lot of time invested in this. But these, the initial parts of these techniques were created in like the 50s and 60s. So like the very, very basic beginning preschool level. And the CIA was responsible for developing a lot of this stuff. And when they created these, their goal was to hypnotize a German submarine commander, give him an alter ego, another personality that was pro-American, send him back to Berlin, and torpedo all of the submarines and all of the ships in this harbor and just blow everything up. The plan never went to fruition, but I have all of those documents. I have a set of documents that no one else has that survived this destruction order, that talked about this process. And it's well known that somebody can be made to have another personality or dissociative identity, not the disorder part, but a dissociative identity. And sometimes doctors can even cause this on accident, like a psychiatrist. And this is called iatrogenic dissociative identity. And it's like a partition in the hard drive, except there's not two people there. There's only one brain, but you're making a hard partition in that person's brain to where they get to pick and choose what their alter ego has. Is kind of like the capacity, the confidence, the mindset, all of that stuff, and they get to pick it.
I've only scratched the surface with that stuff. I read The Alter Ego Effect.
Yeah.
And, it talks about multiple examples of Beyonce. Before she became Beyonce, she had an alter ego that she created called Sasha Fierce, that when she stepped into it, it allowed her to go on stage and be sexy and be out there, when she initially was just a gospel singer and she was a church girl. I guess maybe Mike Tyson has had something similar.
Yeah, Mike Tyson's had hypnosis to where they kind of go through an imaginary scenario. This is a very wildly different type of alter ego where we're making the alter ego. It takes 4 days and it's a stressful process.
What's the process you went through with the fighter? And I guess how can someone at home like take this away? Because I'm like, okay, give me that. Give me some of that.
Yeah. If you're doing it at home, it's going to be an imaginary exercise that may be effective for a lot of people. So the alter ego effect talks about how even just the imaginary presence of an alter ego can kind of give you permission to act in ways that you normally wouldn't. And the people that I typically work with, these are race car drivers, fighters, CEOs that need an extra edge or an advantage. One of the guys was waiting to become CEO of this Fortune 500 company and needed this edge of authority so the board would elect him and all this kind of stuff. I think that's how I don't know how boards work, but from what I understand, that's how it works. So these people don't need some imaginary thing. They need some deep level fundamental shift. So throughout this 4-day process, we develop the most intense. The first 3 days is like extreme brainwashing, but also extreme mind-body connection, control over yourself, and access. So the entire process, when I create an alter ego in someone, is about two things, and that's access and control. So I'm giving you a master key to all of your subconscious, which most people, 99.9% of the planet, does not have that. And then control. I'm using a lot of hypnosis and 1,000 other things. There's some pharmaceutical interventions that we do sometimes. We use all of these things and come together and The day 4 I can't talk about because I think it could be weaponized by bad people pretty easily. But the day 4 is kind of this culmination where we partition that hard drive, and that person can, at a moment's notice, turn this thing on, and it lasts an average of 51 minutes before they have to turn it back on again. And it is fascinating. You watch some people for the first time turn one of these alter egos on, you can see pupils change. I have one video where eye color changes slightly, but you can see it, and I'll give it to you. You can like overlay it on here or something.
Yeah, that's one of those things that I think I heard about from people with split personalities, that their eye color changes when their personality changes, or they have diabetes with one personality and then they switch into another and they don't have it. And you can look at the data and their biomarkers and it's gone.
Yeah, and allergies and all kinds of other crazy stuff.
If someone wanted to get rid of their allergies, could you do that for me?
I've never done it. There's a lot of research that says hypnosis can work for allergies. And
I was just imagining you could have the craziest alter ego like Superman, the most confident man in the world. I just want a copy of me without allergies. Just like thinking small. I'm like, yay, here's my alter ego.
That'll be a new YouTube video. Let's try it. I'll work on you and we'll document the entire process.
Oh, so I envy people who fall asleep like that. I envy them. I have deep resentment for them, especially when they're next to me and they do midnight karate, or they play like midnight Monopoly where they try to take over the bed. Not pointing fingers at anyone specific here who's watching, but if you could help me fall asleep within a second, like that would change my life. I guess
that's pretty easy.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right.
So let's break down how that works in 45 seconds. Hypnosis is many different things happening at one time, and hypnosis is a process, not something that happens in your brain. Hypnosis is something that I do, not you, right? So I'm using hypnosis to make all of these things happen in your brain. One of the first things that happens is the brain starts feeling safe. So the brain feels safe, the body feels safe, and that person's brain starts flooding with this chemical called GABA. It's a neurotransmitter. It stands for gamma-aminobutyric acid. And it's our brain's safety chemical. So during a process of hypnosis, what we would essentially do is anchor that state in your mind to where your brain and body remembers that one state, and we'll do it over and over and over and hypnotize you like 50 times in a row and have you do something like squeeze your wrist and say Jupiter or something like that.
Mm. Wow, I can even have a custom message.
Anything you like, yeah.
Ooh.
So
what would that be?
We would... So we kind of get you to associate those two things together and really tie those things together through some tons and tons of hypnotic suggestion. Future pacing is what they call this, and several other things. But
visualization.
That's how it would work. Yeah.
I guess it's just reps and then training the body to access it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. What happened to that fighter that
He's still around.
You trained? His enemies, are they still around?
I don't know.
He destroyed all his enemies.
I know he was down in Mexico doing some training.
I saw you had a plaque in the studio, like a thank you plaque.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did that show up in the fight?
The announcers are even saying like they've never seen anything like this. This is unbelievable. He's sitting in the corner when like I punch a punching bag for 20 seconds and I'm out of breath. And I'm in decent shape. And he's sitting in his corner in between these rounds and his chest isn't heaving. He's sitting there like a Terminator with this like deadpan, all the muscles on his face are relaxed. And I'm watching this like, oh my God, I had no idea that this would work whatsoever. So I was just thankful that everything worked. And it looked like because fighters when they get hit or when they're about to get hit, you'll see wincing and facial expressions. None. There were none of them. So throughout the whole fight, it was kind of like he accessed this new Terminator mental state, and that's what he was using in the fight. It was beautiful to watch.
How could someone do that at home? Like if I wanted to go home and be like, okay, there's just some things that get in the way of me going after what I want to go after.
I don't think this is possible at home. Because I think people think that I'm going to think my way into this. And people are also assuming that this is a psychological shift that I'm doing in people. There are physiological changes that I'm making in these people.
So you need a partner. You need someone who does it with you and guides you through it.
Yeah. And somebody that you obviously trust. with this process, there's a lot of physiological changes that take place, and it's very stressful. So the last day of this process is a very stressful experience.
Wow.
It's fun.
I want to hear more. Come on, you got to give us something.
So when I do this programming with somebody, it starts 60 days before the day that it starts. So I'm sending them out an MP3 and some hypnosis audio files that they need to listen to every day for 60 days. Then we send them neurotransmitter tests, and they have to get their blood work done. And we're balancing out their neurotransmitters. We're working with a neurologist that talks to the client, gets them on the right track for balancing out they're deficient in vitamin D, or, everything that could possibly be interfering with them psychologically and physiologically. We balance out as much as we possibly can over those 60 days. And the person is nightly getting programmed to my voice, or the practitioner's voice who's doing this. Because I've certified a bunch of people to do this. And the day that you show up as a practitioner, the day that I would show up to go program somebody, they are in the best mental state of their life. All of their stuff is kind of balanced out, and they are hyper entrained. So their brain is hardwired to respond reflexively to my voice, so that we don't have to spend a day and a half overcoming resistance and doing all kinds of little rote processes that could have been done over the phone, which is why we kind of do that audio. It's so important to get their brain ready for the process, because it's a stressful experience. There's all kinds of trimmering stuff that happens where the body can go into we deliberately manufacture these things called neurogenic tremors for hours at a time, which is something that's taking place in the spinal cord. And in between that, we're doing hypnosis. There's a 3-second break where they need to lay on the floor, and then we're going back into neurogenic tremors. And if you've never heard of neurogenic tremors, it's built into every single mammal on the planet, and we're the only mammals that suppress it. And it's a way that our body handles stress and trauma, and that's why you don't see depressed zebras and squirrels and foxes.
Is that like the shaking?
Yeah.
That they do? I think it's like a lying down position, and you have your legs up. Is that the, what is it called?
It's neurogenic tremors. But
okay.
Someone else relabeled it and called it TRE, trauma releasing exercises.
TRE, that's it.
That was Dr. David Berselli. But he was a trauma surgeon, as I recall. And he noticed that this was a very common thing he's seeing in people going through trauma. And then he noticed it in the animal kingdom and made this possible for military. And I went through it and never suffered a lack of sleep again. I only did it one time. And it was fantastic.
It's free. You just lay down, and is that what you mean, the TRE?
Well, your body's already programmed to do it.
Yeah.
So the thing that you have to learn is to stop suppressing it, which is the funny thing.
Letting go.
So I'm not really learning to do anything. I'm learning to let go of this suppression mechanism.
Yeah, it's those things that oftentimes are just free. That,
Yeah.
I guess, people, it's so easy to discredit. Because people are interested in discrediting it because they can make money off of it, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever company. I mean, how many companies, how many billions of dollars are in treating, managing depression, and what other trauma there is?
Yeah. I think the whole world of psychology is more, in my opinion, they're more concerned with understanding problems than truly solving them.
Yeah. And oftentimes, I think even understanding a problem more creates more story around it, more attachment to it, and then justification for it.
Yeah.
I think there's even a lot of people that I see who, whatever problem they have is the solution. Is their solution to get attention, to get approval, to get, I think pity is one of the drivers of human, what would you call it? Like it's...
social needs.
Social needs, yeah.
It's a common social need.
Especially nowadays in the Victim Olympics that we're playing with. Who's the biggest victim?
Yeah, and I think that's it gets more dangerous when you have a diagnosis, especially somebody under the age of 18.
Oh.
And you tell them you have this or you have that, and then they say I am or I have. Now it becomes a part of their I statements, and I'm against it. I'm a brainwashing guy. I'm not a behavioral psychologist. I'm not a therapist. But that's kind of step one of brainwashing, is to make something about someone's identity.
Yeah. Label and boom, you can you have a stamp on your forehead.
Yeah.
Like you could put me in front of TikTok for 10 hours and label me as having ADHD. And then if I go out in nature for a few days, then I don't have ADHD, right? Yeah. And it's like, and oftentimes, I think you mentioned this too. You can ask a room full of people, like, hey, who here sometimes feels like they have a split personality? Like you want to eat the cake, but part of you doesn't.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, yes, everyone feels that way.
Everybody. Or how you ever kind of at odds with yourself, where you don't want to get out of bed, but you know there's a part of you that does want you to get out of bed? Everybody. That's everybody. Yeah.
And there's so many of those like that. Like a friend of mine, he has this pattern where he keeps bringing up that, I have this problem where I have a really difficult time focusing. And I'm like, that's everybody.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like my brain, it just compares itself to other people. It's like, that's everybody. And so it's so easy to just slap a label on something like that and be like, oh, you have this condition.
Yeah.
And then they're separate. They're different. And there's something wrong with them.
I agree. And I think what our country is really suffering from now. So we see these people who they can't concentrate in school when they're in high school or middle school or college, and they can't concentrate in these areas of their life. Mom and dad's talking to them. They can't concentrate. They get diagnosed with ADD. And then they go inside at the end of the day and they binge watch Game of Thrones for like 9 straight hours. Mm-hmm. They'll skip peeing just so they can keep watching the episodes. They don't have an attention deficit. It's an interest deficit that's been created. But they're getting treated for attention deficit. So now they're getting on amphetamines and all of these other crazy dopaminergic drugs. And why, if my son or daughter has ADHD, can he binge watch
Leon Hendricks on YouTube?
Yeah.
Your son specifically?
Yeah. My son subscribed to you before we knew each other.
Yeah. Did he subscribe to me, or did
I subscribed his phone to your YouTube channel?
That's right. Because you told me the story when we first met. You were like, yeah, I went on my son's iPad and I just clicked all your videos, liked all of them so that it would show up in the algorithm.
Yeah. And this other YouTube channel called After School, have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, we talked about it. It has these thumbnails with the drawn thumbnails, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the best channels on YouTube.
Yeah, not the best. One of the best.
Yeah, of course.
Good. So going back to the parts therapy. I mean, I know a little bit about parts therapy. I read No Bad Parts, the idea that we have multiple personalities inside of us. Oftentimes, they come up at a point in our lives when we went through a trauma or something where a new part of us was needed. Let's say we moved to a new city and we have a culture shock. Let's say we moved to a different country even, and we're required to just be more stoic. And then there's a new part that forms inside of us. So is that kind of like what you did with the fighter? Is that... Or is that like a different level? Is that like
a different, way deeper level than that?
So
when it comes to parts theory, this is people that have been through trauma, they've been through stuff, and there's so many people. Like as a behavior profiler, when I look at anybody, and if I give advice, this is the advice I gave to my son 2 days ago. Everyone that you meet that looks like they have their shit together is lonely. Every one of them. We're in a loneliness epidemic right now. Everyone is lonely, and everyone you meet is trying to fake like they're not. And that's where parts come. I have to put a mask on in this area. I have to put this mask on in this area. I have to cover this piece up. We have so much shame and guilt that manifest in all these weird ways. So it's just planting random seeds. There's these weird things that grow. Sometimes it's PTSD. Sometimes it's like self-harm or the other kind of crazy stuff. I think if we get to a point where we realize like this is pretty much a game. I mean, even the Bible tells us this is kind of a simulation. This is kind of a game. We get to a point where it's like nothing's a big deal. This is pretty much a game. I'm going to enjoy this. And like you get to a point of unbelievably ridiculous levels of self-forgiveness for everything you've done, everything that you've been through, and just so self-forgiving that is delusional. Because you're already delusional for the other shit. So just go the other direction.
Yeah.
Just choose the other delusion. I think that's the number one way to live your life.
It's funny that you talk about the simulation, because a couple of episodes ago, me and my co-host, usually you're the first guest. Usually I do episodes with co-hosts and we just react to funny stuff and just make it a fun conversation. I found a channel called Coming Home, and it's a series of interviews of people who died and came back.
Oh yeah, I've binged that.
You binged it?
Yeah.
And it's crazy how they tell the same story, and they have like eerie similarities, which is like this: they get engulfed by this feeling of love they've never felt before. It's indescribable. They've seen colors they've never seen before, and there's light beings and angels. And so many of them shared this sentiment that, oh wait, this is real. What was on Earth, that was a theater. We were just putting on costumes, and this is real life. And it's pretty much like we're living in a simulation.
And every ancient text is trying to tell us, begging to tell us. Look all the way back to Plato, which is before the Bible was written, wrote this allegory of the cave, which became the Matrix later. And they're trying to tell us. It's like this is the one thing that's kind of buried inside of everything. The Bible, the Bhagavad Gita, the Dhammapada, the Upanishads, I think I'm mispronouncing that. All of these ancient, the Vedic texts, the Hermeticism, even the Gnostic Gospels and the Dead Sea Scrolls, all of these things, the forbidden book of Thomas and Judas.
I bet Thomas didn't call that book that, right? Somebody else came up with that name.
Yeah, not God, though.
What if all these ancient texts that are begging us to realize, hey, this is just a game, what if they're just ruining the fun? What if we're just literally just in a game and just like, let me just be immersed. Don't tell me this is just a game. Let me just, I'm just imagining being in a VR headset and we're doing role play, and then this one guy is like, hey, you guys know this is just a game. We're like, stop, we're trying to have fun here. But it's a brutal game.
It is
It's
rough.
a brutal game.
And I think knowing that you're in the game gives you more control over the outcome, because then you can kind of look up all the cheat codes. So like, for this scenario that I'm facing right here, this goal that I have, what is the up, down, A, B, select, start?
That's why you jumping like that when we came in.
Every day. Yeah.
Yeah, and you turned, and yeah.
Yeah. And that's like part of my head disappears most of the time when I'm doing that stuff.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. We're making all of this up.
There's someone in there who doesn't get it.
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that. We've done 2 episodes so far. Both were, previous 2 episodes were very interview heavy, where I just drilled you on like what you know and stuff like that. I got a lot of heat in the previous episode. I don't think you read the comments.
I never read comments ever.
Yeah.
I've never seen a negative comment from a really successful person.
Yeah, maybe. I guess so. But
or a hateful.
A lot of people were saying the host, like, I love Chase. It's one of the most incredible interviews I've ever listened to, and I can just read it out to you here.
Shit.
But the interviewer, he's so immature. He's laughing at inappropriate points, because initially when you talked about Erin Caffey, the psychopath the daughter who killed her family.
Yeah.
I laughed because I was thinking of a joke that I was making, and I was just nervous because it was the beginning of the recording, and people were like, how can he laugh at that? And I think I might be a psychopath.
I don't think you are.
I might say. Check out this comment here. I'm going to read it out to you. This is by April's Will 9204. 342 upvotes. The interviewer, Leon, keeps laughing at inappropriate moments, which is exactly what the interviewee just described as a key psychopathic trait around 8:57. Then at 9:47, Leon lists things he's done that supposedly indicate he's not a psychopath. It almost comes off as guilt or paranoia. 324 upvotes on this comment.
Oh, 20 of those were mine. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got 322 left. After that, he asks how to spot a psychopath, almost like he's trying to learn what behavior to avoid. The whole interview starts off feeling really strange, almost like I'm watching an expert being interviewed by an actual psychopath. And that's what makes this a fascinating interview. And the comments underneath are like, great commentary. The inappropriate laughter was startling. You're probably right. I agree with your comment. Chase, just tell me.
One of the traits of being a psychopath is that you change who you are based on who you're talking to. And I did that probably till I was like 30.
I was going to say, this is another thing that like everyone would raise their hand. It's like, do you ever change the way you're talking?
Yeah. So to be a psychopath, you need like 15 of those indicators, not one. That's like someone said, oh, you blinked, so you're lying.
Yeah.
You need some more than that. But I think if you're a person who is fearful or suspicious or skeptical because something's happened to you, a neutral face in a grocery store, just a regular neutral face is going to look threatening. It's going to look different to your brain because you're seeing the world differently. So little things like that to someone who is like, no one's going to get one over on me. No one's going to trick me. It looks like I'm potentially being tricked all day long. So those types of people, and I have those flaws too. I'm not saying that these are those people. I've got tons of those little biases and stuff.
Yeah, you have a lot of flaws. Yeah, I noticed that.
Thank you. But
even me bringing this up with the psychopath comment right now, people are like, oh, he's like learning. He's learning how to avoid it. So, yeah. But to speak more into what you just said, I think I have a friend who is like that. Like he assumes the worst. And he just has trust issues. He's just been hurt a lot. And so anything that's like a neutral event, he's like, there's something behind it.
Yeah.
So
did you see the way he looked at us? And we're like, he just said hello. That was all.
Yeah. And they make up a whole story.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that is happening even when you look at politics and the news and like there's someone out to get me with like everything, right? Like you made phenomenal videos about like psyops and how to spot one. And I think some people that just take it way too far. Like comments that are saying that the video itself is a psyop.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Yes. It's meant to like break you out. I have to use psychology to get you out. I can't just use black and white text on screen just to make sure no one's influenced by it. Then the video is not effective anymore.
Yeah.
If I'm going to be influential on YouTube, I'm going to use every tactic I can to break people free. And I think if you're using all these tactics for good and you have good intentions, then I think that's good. Then you're not going to break anybody out if you're not using psychology.
It's almost like you have to. It's the same thing with using clickbait on YouTube or just using a very clicky title.
Yeah.
It's like, sure, I can just name it Chase Hughes and Leon Hendricks Talk. But because everyone else on YouTube comes up with the most intriguing thing possible, if I don't play that game, you would never hear about it. And so, yeah.
And I think we'll grow out of that soon. Because, like we've all grown out of like, man discovers weird trick to cure skin rashes. Doctors hate him.
Yes.
And like we're so immune to that because it's just been overblown. And the next phase is going to be for us to be immune to the clickbait titles. It's just, it's right down the road.
I think it moves in cycles. There's a book called, I think it's Breakthrough Advertising. I think he talks about that in that book. It's one of the OG books. Like it costs like hundreds of bucks and the copies are limited. But I think it's that book or maybe another book. I could be wrong. If so, I'll just put the other book on. He talks about the different cycles. So that initially the whole pill to get lean, to lose weight, that was like really intriguing. And then people got fatigued. They're just like, I know that's not true. And then it's more about like, hey, let's figure out like sustainable ways.
Yeah.
And then it moves more and more. And then it moves back into now Ozempic. And now it's possible, right? And so now if we saw like a miracle drug, we'd probably be open to it again.
Yeah. And it's very pendulum-like. It's going back and forth for sure.
Yeah. So as someone who is a behavior profiler, when you look at the news, I'm curious what you see. Because right now, Elon Musk is either the devil that is destroying the country and who wants the most power, and he's obviously a Nazi because didn't you see the salute? Or he's a saint, he's a hero that saves America and saves free speech. And without him, we would all be screwed. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle. What do you think his intentions are? What do you see when you look at someone like him?
When he was talking about, it was Neil Armstrong or Buzz Aldrin, being unapproving, I don't know if that's a word. Or,
Disapproving.
Yeah, disapproving of his ideas to send his privatized rockets into space. He cried.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember that.
I do. He was like, I think it was about like giving up, right? Like,
Yeah.
would you ever give up? And he's like, never.
Yeah. I think that shows a lot of his behaviors, and I'm just using one example. There are literally hundreds of examples of him getting emotional about being passionate about stuff. There are great things about him. There may be some not so great things about him. And I think if you're on a side where all you can see is bad, then you have been programmed.
Yeah.
You have been programmed successfully to not see reality. If you're on the side where all you see is he's the best human being in the world, he's only doing great things, he's a saint, you have also been programmed successfully. If I'm in a group where I think everything that my party does is correct, everything, and everything the other party does is wrong, I can see no good in the others, I can see no bad in us, then you are in a cult.
Yeah.
That's a cult.
So I'm curious what you see in this clip. We see both Trump and Elon. There's a whole thing going around with supposedly Trump is succumbing to Elon, and there's a whole narrative going on. I'm curious if you see anything in the behavior of those two when you see them interacting together.
Okay.
I want to look at cars.
Mr. President, I have an announcement to make that would be helpful. I want to say, as a function of the great policies of President Trump and his administration, and as an act of faith in America, Tesla is going to double vehicle output in the United States within the next 2 years.
That's
Double.
a big deal. That's good. Thank you. And by the way, he makes one car. This one I don't understand. This one I don't want, but that's okay. Without a steering wheel, it comes out next year, right?
Yeah.
Explain that, please.
Yes. Well, the Cybercab starts production in Texas next year, and it's self-driving. We have so much confidence in the self-driving nature of it that it will actually not have a steering wheel. It will not have pedals. It'll either self-drive or not drive at all, but it'll self-drive.
President Trump. And I'm going to pass on that particular.
What do you see when you see these two interacting? Like, what are you picking up on?
They're buddies. And what you're really seeing is Trump being himself. There's nothing that's out of his normal baseline behavior there. And Elon being excited. Like, his whole life was about purpose, helping, and all of that. So in his mind, you may disagree, but in his mind, he's finally got to that point. Like, I've done all of these things, but now I'm actually fixing an entire country. I'm going to be in the history books. I'm going to be like Nikola Tesla, who I named my car company after. And I've got a friend of mine that's extremely conservative, a very conservative guy. And when Biden got elected, he called me and he was looking for survival tips. Like, what do I need to stock up on? What are the medical supplies that I need for long-term survival? There's going to be blackouts. There's going to be nuclear war.
Did you tell him toilet paper?
Yeah.
That's what he needed right before COVID. That he would have been on a gold mine.
I said there's 3 categories of stuff you need: beans, bullets, and Band-Aids, and everything falls into those 3 things. But I essentially said, look, man, your brain is being manipulated to think that this is going to make a gigantic difference in your life. You saving like $300 on a tax return for an entire year might be the only thing that happens, and it's still going to happen whether or not you watch the news. The number one thing that you can do after President Biden's elected is pray for him or wish him the best and hope that he's the best president we've ever had. So no matter what, this news is an artificial program every day to convince you that everything every day is going to make an impact in your life. And it's not. It's not going to matter. If you shut the news off for a month and something major happens, your friends are going to tell you. Your neighbors are going to tell you. You're going to get texts about it. And nothing in your life is going to be really different just because you stopped watching the news. the healthiest decision that a lot of people can make right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you never watched it, you didn't know what was going on, you would still live wherever you live, go about your day.
Pay the same taxes.
Yeah.
Do everything.
Anything else that you saw in I guess, Elon's behavior or Trump's?
So I think what we've seen in Elon, and Trump is Trump in this video, but what we've seen in Elon over the last year is him developing a thicker and thicker and thicker skin to criticism and judgment and all of that stuff, which I don't think he had before. I don't think it was that thick before.
Yeah.
And he's gotten used to it.
Just to add to that real quick, I'm reading his biography, and he was very sensitive when he was not in the news and he was not in, like, seen as the CEO of Tesla when he first got involved. And he was like, why am I not on there? Right.
And they're like, dude, you just smoked a joint on Joe Rogan, so we're gonna hide you for a little while.
Yeah, I think that was way before then even.
Okay.
Like, he was just sensitive about getting credit and not getting the credit that he deserved. And I think there's a bunch of ego behind it. Like, I think he's definitely someone who has a big ego.
Well, I don't think you rise to positions like that without one.
You can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think like Washington, D.C. is like a narcissism capital. Like most people are attracted to politics and stay in politics because of the power, the prestige, how they can manage their perception, and they're getting doted on by all these people all the time. So that's attractive to some people.
It's weird because I would think that politicians are some of the most hated people in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can't think of a politician where people are cheering and everyone's like, yeah, I love that guy. But
JFK?
I don't know. I think he's getting a lot of hate too.
Really? From who? The CIA?
From just people who are against everything that's going on right now.
Yeah. Oh, you're talking about RFK.
RFK. Okay.
Yeah.
JFK, I don't know much about.
Yeah, RFK is getting a lot of heat. It's always what I teach my kids, what I've taught every one of my friends is what I'm seeing online about this person or that person, are they disagreeing because of ideas or identity?
Mm.
And a lot of what we're seeing is an identity argument from both sides.
I think both Trump and Elon really like the spotlight. I think they're making a difference. Definitely. They're making change. But I wonder if this can go south, because both of them are used to being the guy. And when you have both of them in the spotlight, I wonder if there's ever a disagreement where it can turn really sour.
They're both driven by a need for significance. So other people help them to feel significant. But they differ in one need. One of them is intelligence, and one of them is strength and power. So I have 6 human needs that I teach. Here's the chart. So it's significance, acceptance, approval, intelligence, pity, and strength. And so they're going to differ on the intelligence and strength part. So as long as Trump is able to maintain feeling power, and Elon is a mega genius, and they gain significance through those 2 avenues, then they're going to be okay. Historically, when Trump has fired people, it's been because of betrayal. So he sees loyalty as like this number one top thing for him. And he, people talk about him having these narcissistic traits, almost undeniable. And Elon's got a lot less because he doesn't need to feel that sense of power over people. So there's a great clip of Elon where someone corrects him about this fin stabilizer or
At the rockets?
Yeah, something
yes,
to do with the rockets.
We'll play that as well.
Yeah.
But he's like, oh, I haven't thought about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very humble. So because he's not about being in charge of the other person. He's not about being over another person. So he doesn't view the world through hierarchy and status every single day, but he does want to be significant in his own right. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
This is like widely accepted as like the power stance. Do you believe in that? Is that right?
So we call this an inverted pyramid. And it typically, if you start out a meeting like this and everything is nice and confident, and then as the meeting goes on, you're kind of coming down, this is almost a surrender gesture. So most experts would say that. That's not my opinion. That's just what maybe there's research behind it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the people that I respect in the body language world, Greg Hartley is one of them. Talks about this being a surrender gesture. So you're more likely to be in charge of a meeting if you're leaned back and your fingers are more vertical upward. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, and you can feel the difference.
How does that feel to you?
If you put them down,
Yeah.
it's a very different feeling than if they're kind of up.
Yeah. I think where this could go south is if at any point there's a narrative going around that, oh, thank God we have Elon also doing things because Trump, and then it takes away from the significance of Trump.
It's going to be hard to do.
It's going to be hard to do.
Every media out there is going to be covering Trump 24/7, whether they hate him or they love him. They're going to cover him 24/7, and it's not going to make that much difference in most people's lives.
What do you think Elon's intentions are? Like, even with X, is it truly to bring back free speech, or is it to just move things in a certain direction that benefits him and Tesla?
I think he has good intentions. I think most people, even corrupt politicians, probably have good intentions.
In their story, yeah, in their mind.
Yeah, in their little hero's journey in their head. But I think when it comes to Elon, I think that he truly maybe is one of the smartest dudes in the world, but he sees himself as somebody who's going to be on like a half-page photo in history books or the history ebooks of the future. Elon is more about legacy and what is the legacy coming behind. So I think that he saw this move to Twitter and this move for free speech as him making a huge statement for legacy. And he's doing something that I think he believes in. But I think it's more about legacy for him. How will I be remembered?
And he does stir things up more than I think oftentimes is necessary, because it gets him...
Oh, yeah.
Gets him an extra page.
Yeah.
An extra Wikipedia paragraph.
And I think he just likes pissing people off.
Yeah. And I think he likes the attention of it.
Yeah.
It's crazy because nowadays so many people say about Elon Musk, like, oh, he's like, I think to people who are not entrepreneurs, who hate him, they're like, oh, he's the type of guy who lets other people do all the work and then he takes all the credit, and he's actually really dumb. Like, that's the narrative that's now going around. He's actually really, really dumb. And it's just so crazy to me. Like, you can't deny that he's an incredible entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You can't deny it. Why do you think that stuff's going on right now?
I think that there is a campaign against him of just let's do everything we can to diminish the character, credibility, and status of this person as much as you possibly can. And I would think to anyone, I don't think anyone could really believe that. He's obviously a smart guy, and it's a campaign, and there's maybe some bad stuff he's doing, maybe all good stuff. I don't follow the news because it doesn't matter. I'm not going to be, me watching it on a screen doesn't put me in control of jack shit.
It doesn't.
So it does nothing for me. And anything that's happening, my neighbors will call, or my dad is very up to date on it.
You recently sat in the same chair as him.
As Elon. Yeah, right before Elon came
And
on.
Trump.
Yeah.
So you shared some maybe butt bacteria with each other.
Maybe some skin cells.
Skin cells, you
Yeah.
inhaled some. Did
Yeah.
you see a Trump hair? Anyway, you were on Joe Rogan's podcast. What was that like? Because you've now done the podcast rounds. You've been on tons of podcasts, Diary of a CEO, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Patrick Bet David. What's been your experience? I'm curious.
I don't know what to say. It's everybody's different. Everybody has a different line that they want to go down. And it's weird how curiosity is not the number one. I've been on some tiny podcasts. Like, I've been on podcasts where they have 400 subscribers, and they are immensely curious and tuned into everything that's going on. They want to dig down every little thread that comes out of my mouth. They want to kind of track it down. Let me pull this one down. And it seems like some of those, the less subscribers that somebody has, the more curious they are, in my experience. And I'm not saying this is a rule. So I've been on some great, I just did Lisa Bilyeu with
Impact
Tom
Theory?
Bilyeu's wife. Yeah. And she has a podcast called Women of Impact. And she was immensely curious about everything and just so checked in, wonderful conversationalist. Joe is very similar, great conversation. But I think Joe has unconsciously, maybe unconsciously, developed a way to kind of keep the podcast moving along. So like, let's not drag on any topic too long, unless we're talking about DMT. And I even threw DMT out, and he didn't take the bait.
What was it like his studio and just being there?
It was fantastic. There, when you go in, there's this giant room. It's I don't know, 80 yards long, 80 maybe 50. I don't know, 60 yards long, let's say, by 30 yards. And it's just full of crap. And everything in the room looks like a husband bought something like that. And the wife was like, no, that's not going in the house. It's just insane shit everywhere. There's stuffed werewolf and like giant Elvis posters and alien artifact things. And everything in there looked like a wife told some husband somewhere, like, you cannot, that's not going in the house. And it wound up, they magically appear in that room right there.
Wow.
But it was fun. He has the best team, super nice team of people. And there's more security at that studio than I've seen in airports. It's insane security.
What does that look like?
I don't know if I should talk about that.
Okay.
It would make most airports blush, I would say.
Wow. Fascinating. Do you have any updates on your brain?
A brand new one.
So just for context, you had temporal lobe epilepsy, or I guess have it.
I have it.
It resulted in a lot of seizures that you had, and then once you started taking methylene blue, seizures went away.
Yeah, seizures went away. I saw this guy in Florida named Dr. John Lawrence and got me on this methylene blue protocol. And the day that I started that, there were no seizures. And the only 2 times I've had seizures since then is when I've forgotten to take methylene blue for 48 hours-ish.
Right before Joe Rogan podcast.
The day before Rogan, I had 2 seizures. And I was like, my brain was reeling still during the Rogan podcast. Like, it was hard to put stuff together. So it took me a year to find a clinic that had like a really good scanner. And I went to LA, and this was just 2 weeks ago, I think, give or take, and found out that I've got brain death. I've got a portion of my brain that's kind of not alive. And it was a weird feeling. And I think that I've stopped all of that with methylene blue and this protocol that I follow, which is public. You can throw it up on the screen right now for people to screenshot if you want to. And part of that protocol that's blacked out on the screenshot, or that's kind of blurred out on the screenshot right now, at the very bottom is a recurring monthly use of psilocybin. And that's in, I have to travel to a state where that's legal, obviously, to do that. But going on a monthly psilocybin dose has proven, and it's proven in a bazillion papers, that this stuff helps with neurogenesis and neuroplasticity. And those 2 things alone are the most high leverage things that I've ever done for my brain. It stopped everything. And then adding in nicotine on top of that. And nicotine is proven, again, by thousands of studies to be an extremely high functioning neuroprotective agent. So it protects neurons from damage, or suffering damage. And that, just those 3 things, I would say, out of that whole protocol, is definitely what saved my life. I was at a point of 9 seizures a day, and now I'm 0.
And each seizure was massive brain damage.
Yeah. I mean, you're losing a million to a few million neurons a second during a seizure.
Yeah.
And these were like a minute long, and at 9 a day, it was kind of unsustainable. You know, you're losing more than you're making. So I was really desperate to stop it. And That was the process of it. And going into a temporal lobe seizure, if no one's ever heard of this, you don't have family, let me describe what this is like. So the beginning is, it happens in your temporal lobe, and this is where our hippocampus is, where all of our memory and all that kind of stuff consolidates. So the beginning of this is a slight creeping in, just a slight creeping in of deja vu. And within 10 seconds, it goes from this creeping to there's so much deja vu going on in every single pixel that I can possibly see that someone had to have set this up. Something is wrong with what's going on. Right after that, it's like this giant roller coaster fall feeling in your stomach, and then your whole body just kind of goes limp, like you slump over. And during that like minute, you have like I'd say 1 to 3 years of memories from a life that's not even yours, that are just flashing through that thing. And you're in that minute. So it's like 1 to 3 years of memories and all those memories randomly get tossed into all of your real memory file cabinets. So after that seizure, it takes like 3 days to consolidate, like, that was not my life and this one was my life. So you're going through for days just trying to like sort through all those files, and it's hell.
So the memories you have in that moment are not actually your memories. It's not like they are your memories, but they feel like they're someone else's, but they actually aren't.
Totally someone else's life.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
Yeah. I've had some where I'm like first person POV as a woman in some of these things, which makes you wonder, like, we know nothing about consciousness. Nothing. Like literally nothing. And maybe there's something to this. Maybe Carl Jung was right. There's some kind of shared universal consciousness. And this is like, this part of the brain getting damaged means that you get some access to it. And they call temporal lobe epilepsy the sacred disease. And if I had to pick a disease, it would be that name. That's kind of cool to have.
Wow. Why the sacred disease? Because...
Yeah, there's some kind of weird spiritual aspect to the progression of the disease.
Have you heard of the telepathy tapes?
Yeah, I listened. Is it a video too?
It's a podcast series.
Okay, yeah, I listened on Apple.
So it's about kids with autism who have spiritual powers. They can either read minds or see things from afar. And they even have like a connection point to another realm where they meet with each other, and they call it...
On the hill?
The hill.
Yes.
Crazy.
Yes, indeed.
How much have you looked into that?
I listened to the whole thing, and I study ancient texts as my hobby. Like some people do beekeeping and all kinds of other stuff. I just read all these ancient books from Plato and all of this. It's fascinating to me. And if you look into the telepathy aspect of it, there is a current theory of human consciousness called OR. Have you heard of this?
What is it?
OR. So it's orchestrated objective reality. And this essentially is saying that consciousness is outside of our head, and our brains are receivers and filters for that consciousness.
That's what the people from the Coming Home channel said, is when they died and came back, they're like, the brain is not this thing. The brain is not this thing that creates consciousness.
Yeah.
The brain is a limiter of consciousness.
Yeah.
It's almost like I could experience everything, and then the brain is limiting it to only a certain amount.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see that similarity again.
Yeah, and I mean, that goes back to all these ancient texts that talk about this. Plato talks about this. The Bible talks about this. Like, all is one consciousness, one mind, and that's part of the Hermeticism, the Hermetic principles. All is mind. I think it's principle 5 or 6. But if that's even a millionth of a percent true, then we don't have life figured out. We have like nothing figured out. Every generation says, "Oh yeah, this is the end of science." And like 1801, a physicist said, "We've figured out everything there is to know about physics." There's an astronomer in 1830 that said, we'll never find anything else about the universe. Every generation says, we got shit figured out every single time. And it's funny to see the hubris of people that say, that could never happen, or this can't ever happen. Like, why can't you just say, I don't know? We know jack shit about this universe, especially about ourselves, our own brain. And I'm a neuroscientist. I'll say we know jack about the human brain.
Mm. Yeah, these are almost like windows into what else there might be. Like, we don't even know what we don't know.
That's it. Those are the unknown unknowns.
Methylene blue, psilocybin, nicotine.
Yeah.
Saved your brain. You told me something about your dog. And here's another thing. You said that your whole family takes methylene blue.
On occasion.
On occasion.
Not every day like I do.
Okay. Yeah. When do they take it?
So it's got some properties that help with all kinds of cells in your body. So every cell in your body can potentially benefit, but mostly your neurons benefit. You see my hand is blue from taking it this morning.
Mm.
But it attracts to neuronal tissue and helps your brain get rid of free radicals. It helps balance out all kinds of chemicals in your body, but it helps mostly with this chemical called cytochrome C oxidase, which helps us to generate more energy in our cells, so ATP. Mm-hmm. And
the listeners, they just hear some slobbering right now. That's the dog. Yeah.
And ATP is our energy, our body's energy, our cells' energy.
Mm.
But methylene blue has so many unbelievable benefits that just reading a list of the benefits of methylene blue is going to blow somebody's mind. You don't have to read the research, just the list.
Quick side note, because Chase and I were diving into methylene blue, and in our last chat, people are asking where to get it, I actually reached out to the doctor and founder of the company that makes the methylene blue that both Chase and I take, and they decided to sponsor the episode. So this episode is sponsored by Mitozen. And their methylene blue comes up in these small squares that you cut up and take like any supplement, so you don't end up with a completely blue mouth for hours like you just ate a Smurf. And I've been taking it consistently for the last 6 months whenever I need a cognitive boost or extra energy or when I'm traveling. So check out the link below to try it out, and you'll also get a discount by using that link. And they have some great information around the right dosage, how to take it, and when not to take it. For example, if you're on SSRIs or you're pregnant, those kind of things. And Chase has already talked about the benefits, neuroprotection and brain health, mitochondrial support, mitochondria being the powerhouse of the cell, so increased energy production, increased ATP production, memory enhancement, mood support, enhanced oxygen use, all those things. There's extensive research on it with dozens of studies, some going back over a century, so it's highly researched. So if you're curious, give it a try. Check out the link below to check it out. And now let's get back to the episode. Methylene blue, what role did mushrooms play?
I think mushrooms played a tremendous role, and it's all of these little kind of blackout, brownout spots of my brain are rewiring because of mushrooms. And microdosing is something I do every couple of days, and I think microdosing is a fantastic way for anybody. I think it's just a beautiful thing for people with anxiety and all that. Again, this is obviously not medical advice, but I order it from this company online called Brain Supreme, and you just get this package of mushrooms and you microdose those, and they've got these different kinds, but I use one called Genius that has like nootropics mixed in there for your brain health and all of that. And it has been a determining factor. So I think methylene blue and that little protocol we talked about, and this recurring mushroom microdoses, and then a monthly or every other month larger mushroom dose has truly saved my life.
Like, how does that show up in your day-to-day? Like, what do you notice?
I notice that I function like other people. So we have our daughter, who you haven't met yet. Michelle's going to be home soon.
Hannah? I met her briefly.
Okay, that's right.
After the Joe Rogan podcast.
So when she was born, I took my wife driving the car to labor and delivery. We walk into labor and delivery, checking into labor and delivery. The whole time I'm looking over in the passenger seat, I have no clue who she is. No idea who she is. I thought I knew Obviously, she's a friend, she's a relative, she's someone that's close. She's pregnant, which is very important. I've got to get her to this hospital. But I knew that if I could fake it for long enough, that all of this crap, this cloud would kind of come out of my head, and I would know. There's a selfie that she and I took in labor and delivery. Like I'm holding my phone, and she's got this big belly. We're about to go in there and deliver our daughter. I didn't know who she was in that photo. And I can see it on my face. And you could overlay it on the screen if you want to. That, when you come back and you realize who that is horror movie level terrifying. Of like, it's in many ways, it's like you're dying without, your physical body isn't dying, but everything that makes you is dying. So it's kind of like developing Alzheimer's, that first kind of little bit. And I went into this massive depression, and that's right at the time I started working with Dr. Laurence.
From My Design.
He was a badass dude, yeah.
Yeah. I recently talked to him on the phone, and it seems like he's doing well. I think he's going to talk about it publicly as well.
I hope he does.
Yeah. He had a horrible accident, but yeah. Hearing those things gives me hope, right? And it's similar to the TRE. It's like, it's not this crazy special thing, but it's out in nature. It's something simple. Like even methylene blue is a industrial dye.
Yeah, for blue jeans.
It's not a patented drug by a big pharma company that like now they figured out. No, it's like, then that's probably why many people don't know about it.
Yeah, and especially in our Western world, all the drugs that become popular are drugs that treat symptoms. Drugs that treat causes don't go out there. Things that fix the cause of all of those symptoms.
Yeah.
Cancer is a symptom. Mm-hmm. Right? So the thing that treats the cause of cancer is healthy diet, exercise, follow the RFK diet or whatever.
Yeah, sponsored by nature.
Yeah, it's a lot of that stuff. So our culture is obsessed with symptoms instead of causes. So like I don't instead of getting wealthy, I'm just going to go buy those new $400 Jordans. I'm going to go get a new Porsche. I'm going to go take out a huge loan that I probably can't afford and get this badass Ferrari or something, or get a house that is outside of my range. So our culture medically and our whole lifestyle is obsessed with symptoms. And you even look at medical school, doctors are trained on symptomatology, and they're trained on treating symptoms. So a lot of the stuff you get, the prescriptions you get, they don't treat causes, they treat symptoms. And like, let's just go into my realm. Let's say Leon wants to learn confidence. Like, all right, Google, how do I get confident? You'll see like page after page after page, 17 ways to command respect like a CEO, 12 things all confident people do, 6 ways to look more confident, 3 ways that confident guys attract women. You're going to see all of those things. And you open it up and it's going to say, great posture, good hair, keep your hygiene good, shake people's hands firmly, use their name, touch them on the shoulder, all this crap. They're just giving you symptoms of confidence.
Yeah.
Like,
can I add something to that real quick?
Yeah.
When I interviewed Charlie from Charisma on Command,
yeah,
who makes these breakdown videos about, like these signs of confidence, they split tested a lot of...
You know what Charlie does? He also talks about the worldview and the mindset that those people have to make those symptoms a reality. So we'll just say that for Charlie's sake.
Absolutely. And when I talked to him, one of the first things I asked him was, what do you know about human psychology, or what have you learned based on what does well in your channel? And they've split tested packaging, titles, and all that. And what they found is what usually overperforms is not how to be confident, but how to look confident.
Wow.
Yeah. When they changed the title, because people don't want to be confident.
That's too much work.
Yeah. Just make me look like
Yeah.
I am. Symptom, right? And so...
Give me the Ozempic.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's what I'm hearing in that too.
So, like, if I squirted a bunch of water in your nose, I wrapped you in like 15 heating blankets until your body was 102 degrees. That doesn't give you COVID.
Yes.
But it gives you the symptoms.
Yeah,
and it's
yeah,
not
yeah.
the same. It's not the same as the cause. And one of the things I teach everybody that I'm like my one-on-one clients that are CEOs and all this stuff is everything that you're setting. Like most people get obsessed with all these symptoms. I want all these symptoms in my life. And when you look at most people's goals, it's a symptom. So always trace back anything that I write down that I want for myself or I want for my life or my family, my kids, my company. Get back to how do I make all of the things I want a byproduct? So if I can do that, I'm figuring out that these are symptoms of something that I'm not really conscious of. So what could I do up here that makes everything a byproduct of one shift? And that's Elon's first speech to corporate was very much rooted in that. Like, let's make all of our goals will be byproducts of something larger. And I love that. And it's not just business, that's our life, our confidence. Confidence is a byproduct of something. Let's figure out what that is and then let's give that to people.
Yeah, going to the root of it. Someone who also looks up symptoms first is our guru of the week. So we have a recurring segment on this podcast where we look at some fascinating characters that we find online. Sometimes they have something really fascinating and great to teach. Sometimes they're just weird, but we can still learn something from them. And it's not to expose anyone, it's not to make fun of anyone, but they're oftentimes bizarre. They go outside of the box.
So you haven't told me who this is.
I haven't.
Okay, so it's supposed to be a surprise.
Yeah, have you heard of Mystery?
Like the pickup artist.
That's
yes.
it.
Eric von Markovich, or von Markovich, I think is his name.
All right. And I picked him for a reason because I thought you'd have some interesting things to say about him.
Are we going to analyze the video?
Yes. We're going to look at some stuff. So he is the OG, I think he is the OG pickup guy. And pickup meaning seduction. How do you seduce women? Mm-hmm. This is what's on every man's mind.
Dude,
at some
I was
point.
deep into this world when I was young. Very deep.
I think that's what got you into
everything. Yeah.
Human behavior and all
he
that.
He looks
right?
like Jamiroquai right there.
Yes. And so the origin of it is treating symptoms. It's how do I look like I don't need this woman? How do I look like I'm high status?
Okay.
And
yeah.
Do you remember the peacocking thing that they do?
Oh, yes.
What do you think, as someone who knows what you know, what do you think about that?
So
peacocking context is you make yourself visually stand out on purpose. I can probably just take over the laptop from here. Yeah, you can just turn it around. Yeah, you make yourself stand out visually on purpose by wearing a funny furry hat, for example. And a lot of them would also wear heels.
Or Ben Franklin's jacket.
Yes, whatever he's wearing. What were you going to say?
So a lot of these things are... let me start by saying this. And if you're like listening to educate yourself right now, I would write this one down. Technology has outpaced our brain's ability to adapt. And there's no exception to that. So we have enough research now in psychology and all that stuff. I feel like I'm going to blow the mic out. That I know that if I just do this one little thing and this one little thing, it sets off these inherited tripwires and inherited loopholes in our behavior. So women are attracted to tribal leaders. Who's the only person who would wear something ridiculous in public? You have to be confident. You have to be a leader. So I don't need to be confident. I can just like do this and I get the assumption of authority, the assumption of confidence. Mm-hmm. If I just have a little bit of confidence, I can overdo that and oversell it. And a woman is kind of not really knowing that there's some like inherited tribal loophole being kind of activated in the brain. So back in the day, when I was into this, it started... I first got into this, I was like 19 years old. I was a child, essentially. Mm-hmm. And kind of a douche.
Yeah, and very high sex drive. I think that's what drives men to get into this stuff early on, right? It's just like, you're just like, what do I do with all this energy?
Yeah. I just wanted to avoid rejection. I got rejected once. and it was in front of people, so it hurt. It really stung.
What happened?
It
Did
was
you shit your pants?
No, but it was pretty bland. I was like, hey, we're doing this and this weekend. Do you want to go? And she's like, no, thanks. I was like, okay, well, hey, let me get your number. She's like, no, thanks.
Oh, no. I mean, so it's not even that bad. It's not even like she was screaming and saying like, ew.
But it felt like that bad.
It's horrible.
It felt like a bullet.
Yeah.
So I was 19, and I thought, I need to not ever be rejected again. And I started reading this stuff. I started with this guy named Ross Jeffries, who was the OG back in the day.
He's the OG.
Yeah. And so then I bring a couple of these books to lunch with my mentor. A mentor at the time is mid-70s and a former CIA psychiatrist, MD psychiatrist. And we're at lunch, just me and this guy. And he took this child, this baby kid under his wing. And I've been studying this stuff for a few months now, maybe 8 or 9 months. I even kind of compiled it all together, tried to write my own book about it because I thought it was so amazing.
You were wearing a furry hat.
I didn't ever do that.
I'm just imagining you just I'm going to learn from this mentor. You have the hat on. You're wearing heels for some reason.
Thank goodness I didn't do that. But it works for some people. But here's the turning point for me. If you look through all of these pickup artist tactics, there's a bunch of them, a bazillion of them. These things where you're throw a little insult out in the beginning.
Negging.
They call it negging.
Did he come up with that?
Maybe he came up with that terminology. I think dudes came up with that probably 30,000 years ago.
Ooga, negging.
Yeah. So all of these things they seemed great. It's like, wow, I just do this, and this, and it kind of magically clicks these tripwires. And this was the big turnaround for me. Our mentor said, we have 8 or 10 minutes before our food gets here. I want you to flip through these books. I want you to find one technique or one tactic that isn't a way to fake like you have your shit together and pretend like you're a man.
Wow. He knew back then already.
Oh, yeah. Because I told him these cool little tricks that I learned.
Still imagining you with the furry hat. It's like, it's called negging.
Don't put that in people's head, dude. That didn't happen.
Okay, that didn't happen. It's just in my head.
So wait, let me finish this really quick. So he's like, oh yeah, go through this book, find something that's like, you're not trying to pretend. You're trying to pretend like you're a man. And I thought, no, it talks about confidence. He's like, show me the chapter. Find the page. That's all I'm asking you to do. I'm not saying it's not in there. Just find the page. So I flipped to this little confidence chapter. I won't say the book. And it's all the confidence is symptom, loud voice, grab a girl by the hand when you first meet her and spin her around like she's dancing. And it was all this fake confidence. Everything in the book was how to be a fake man. If I'm not a man, I can fake it by doing all these things.
And that how to hijack the woman's brain where she has no other choice. It's so creepy.
Yeah.
If you think about it.
That whole day I was just reeling and thinking in my brain, I'm not speaking for anybody else, but in my brain I was like, I am not a man if I do any of these things. Because it's stunting my growth to manhood, which I think is an endless journey, should be an endless journey for everybody. But I thought, I'm just pretending to be a man. And I thought, what if my dad saw me doing some of this shit that I saw in these books? And that was or my mom even. And it's okay just to be a man. And you'd be very surprised. He had me read this other book called Red Queen, and Red Queen set my brain straight.
Red Queen. What's it about?
Human sexual behavior and evolutionary biology, sociology, and then human sexual behavior, and how we evolved to desire certain traits in people. And one of those is masculine, feminine, and understanding that you don't need to pretend.
So it's a very freeing book. Yeah, I think there's a lot of guys who are into pickup that they need to detox a little bit. I think this is the Ross Jeffries clip where he's on TV.
He's a great dude.
You know him personally. You've introduced me to him as well. I had a talk with him too.
So he goes by Paul Ross now, and speaker Paul Ross. And he has trained some of my VIP clients. And I have worked with several $1 million worth of training funding. Every expert in the world's been called in. By far, the best linguist when it comes to linguistics and language techniques and things like that I've ever met in my life.
So this is in 1982 when he was on a women's talk show. Terrible place to be as someone who who's teaching guys how to pick up women. Oh wow, this is so old. They just invented color.
I don't know if you noticed by the shots that we're taking, but this is an audience of all women today. We have invited them here for a reason, because we have three men with different points of view. These three men think they know what women think. And today we will find out.
It's
Meet
fascinating.
Ross Jeffries. He says he got tired of being Mr. Nice Guy and being dumped by women. So he changed his ways, and he wrote a book for other men who feel the same way. It is called How to Get the Women You Desire into Bed. This is Mel Fight. Mel says women say they want a sensitive guy, but the minute men get sensitive, women run the other way.
What do you think about that?
I think it's probably true. That what she just said? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I think...
well, unless it's a very masculine woman. I think there needs to be a masculine-feminine balance.
Yeah.
I just think 99.999% of the time that's going to be a dude.
Yeah. A woman who is feminine at her core, I think it's okay to show some sensitivity and vulnerability, but it's after you've dealt with it. And then you bring it to... I could be wrong. I'm just a young man. So... and then there's this guy here.
And finally, Bruce Weinstein. Bruce says he is pro-feminist and pro-woman. He thinks men would be a lot better off if they only learned to listen to what women have to say.
Look at this. See that? I remember.
That's so 80s. So just those little movements.
I remember watching that. I was like, man, that poor guy. He may have a rude awakening at some point.
I think the number one thing that most guys need, and not just to attract women, but to be successful in life, is composure, which we've talked about before, I think, on one of your other podcasts.
We have the first one, yeah.
And I think that composure is the root of everything. So that guy's kind of in collapse. I'm going to collapse and then people will like me. And Paul is more into the posturing side. You can see it just in the way they're sitting.
The way he sits, yeah. And I think he's managing symptoms here.
Yeah.
He's probably also feeling it, and he's like, let me lean out here. And yeah.
Lean away, distance myself from these guys.
Yes.
So, but I think that composure is the key. And the left and right extremes of composure is collapse and posturing. And they're both very similar. The collapse and posturing are both concealing their true feelings and their intent. They're both rooted in insecurity, and they're both artificial. So that composure happens like in that moment. It's a kind of a razor's edge to where you kind of don't want to fall off of it. But it's the whole thing is how can I learn to live in front of my eyes and be radically self-forgiving to where you're not worried about things anymore. And then confidence is kind of a byproduct of that.
I mean, a lot has happened, I think, since then. Now, it seems like there's a big crackdown on like any like dating content. I think it's even like on YouTube, you can get in trouble if you talk about like seduction and stuff like that. But back in the day, what's that?
Yeah.
Right?
Back in the day, it was everywhere. Well, for me, because I had kind of like that effect of where I just saw it all over the place.
Yeah. And a lot of it started, going back to Mystery, started with him. I think he really launched that movement because he was such an eccentric character. I think he was also doing like magic tricks.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, that's how you got started.
And scripts. a lot of scripts, like one-liners where he's like, did you see that fight outside? Something like that. Just a way to get the conversation going, even when there wasn't a fight outside.
Or, hey, let me get your opinion real quick.
Yes. Who lies more, men or women?
Yeah.
I think that's one of the lines, right?
You know what mine was when I was like 19, 20? Was my friend and I are having a debate over here. Did the Batman costume have nipples on it or not?
It's a great
So
one.
that was our...
I immediately have an
go-to.
emotional reaction. I'm like, I go into my head. I notice myself like, it's like playful.
Yeah. But
And you would probably
that was
argue, you were arguing for the nipples, right?
No, whatever they said, I would argue against
Okay.
whatever they said.
But who would think that he had nipples?
Well, then you get analytical women that would go, wait, which one? Are you talking Michael Keaton? Are you talking... And then they would kind of go through the list, and I was like, all right, never mind.
By the way, last episode, I want to correct something because I got multiple comments about that. You said that you, as a joke, you ask women to see if they can take a joke. Do you fart?
Yeah.
And I repeated it back.
Wait, this is not an opening line.
It's not an
Let's
opening
just
line. It's just like
clarify that.
yeah.
Mom, I'm sorry.
Chase's mom. Chase is sorry. But at some point, because we're talking about what would you do to test a man if you're a woman, what would you do to test a woman if you're a man? And you said as a joke, like, oh, you can ask her, do you fart? I repeated it back with my accent, do you fart? And then people thought, oh my God, what a horrible person, like that he thinks he can ask a woman if she wants to fuck.
Wow.
Because fart. Like, so I'm just to set the record straight. I don't ask that to women.
Can't you add in a subtitle?
Yeah. Just
like all caps?
Just
giant?
for me. Just for me, yeah.
Oh, man.
Here's some footage of Mystery using his mystery method.
Okay.
Have you seen a lot of this stuff?
No.
Answer me about the costume today.
Yeah, I'm changing the subject. Do I have to answer every single thing that you want? Who the hell are you, Missy?
Ooh.
Sarah fucking Garrett.
Oh, really? Sarah who?
Garrett.
Sarah Garrett. Pleasure to meet you. I'm Eric. You want my last name? You won't remember it. It's Von Markovic. As am I. What do you do for fun? I'm sorry I met you here, but I love the antagonistic attitude.
Where would you normally be? What do you do? What do you do?
I'm a glorified bum. And but I'm in Hollywood with purpose.
Missing your cane. And you have on more eyeliner than
What
I
did she
do.
say?
She's like, what do you do? He's like, I'm a glorified bum.
Did she say, and I can see your cane or something like that?
I don't know. I think she's now going to the eyeliner that he's wearing and stuff like that. So the peacocking is working.
She's negging him.
She's negging him. And I mean, it's like, it's a form of flirting, I guess, but it doesn't have to be that antagonistic.
So this behavior, this dress, these mannerisms, I've seen kind of work in a lot of short-term stuff.
Yeah.
I think if you have an extremely high self-esteem, high intelligent person, this is going to be like, they're going to be so turned off by this.
Yeah.
So I think some people have larger loopholes is what the way that I describe it. Some people have larger loopholes than others.
When they have lower self-esteem.
Lower self-esteem,
Lower intelligence.
lower social intelligence. So like that behavior doesn't appear weird because the confidence is able to overpower the weirdness.
The confidence of the person that's pretending to be this character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's from what I understand, he's a good dude. Like he's got ethics and morals from what I've heard.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've like many guys who are into self-improvement, a big part of it is relationships. It's dating, it's women and learning, okay, how do I attract a mate? So I've gone deep into this stuff as well. And when you use the techniques,
And you know what the ultimate thing is? How do I attract someone? Become attractive.
yeah. That's really it.
And it's not do attractive things, it's become attractive. I'm
Yeah.
sorry I interrupted you.
I started out with such a low self-esteem initially. like many guys, that it was literally just the masking. And the whole idea is like fake it till you make it. I don't believe in that. When I was diving into that stuff, I remember that when I used the techniques, I remember the first time I read about it too, and I'm like, oh, what if you, just tease her a little bit in a way that negs her, or whatever it's called, right? You make a little snarky comment that's like playful but cheeky.
Yeah.
I would see immediate response. I would see immediately, okay, like something's working. It would, like you said, I wouldn't get the same response if it was someone with high self-esteem.
Yeah.
Like you attract a certain type of person with that. And a lot of guys who I know who are into self-improvement, who got into that stuff, the most healthy, successful, happy guys I know had a phase and then they grew out of it. They matured out of it.
Yeah. I know a lot of guys that were into it and then they're hyper successful now. And they kind of matured their way out of it. I know it's exactly the same for my group of friends.
And then there's a few guys who I think get stuck in that, and I don't know, it seems miserable. It seems very lonely. And I think you reinforce that I have to put on a mask to get these results, to get success. Therefore, I'm not enough.
I'm not enough.
And it just makes it it lowers your self-esteem even more.
Yeah. Because dating is something, or being good at dating is something that you are, or something that you should be, not something you should do.
Yeah.
And you're doing things.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned this today, earlier, that nowadays men think it's about how tough you are and all that. I think specifically in today's time, it's money. I think a lot of young men believe that money is the thing that gets women attracted. And it's just so funny to me. Like you think that once you have money that, because I know guys who thought that way and they made a lot of money, and I know guys who are virgins and they cannot hold a conversation with.
And again, it's the wrong type. It's not going to be the kind you want.
Yeah, and if there's someone coming along with more money, you're gonna get replaced.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sad. I think it's tough to be a young man nowadays. What I'm also seeing is that there's a lot of talk about how to attract women. There's not much for women out there, because I wanted to look at the other side. Okay, what about women, right? Like, what is the equivalent of mystery for a woman? And there's not really anyone out there, because I think for women it's usually the right guy just has to come to me, and they're not coming to me, and But for men, I think a lot of men obsess about, okay, what do women want? And that's culturally even like, it's the conversation. It's what do women want? What do women want? And I think a lot of women don't actually know what men want. They think they do, but I don't think they really do. And I think if a woman learns just a little bit, she can pretty much pick and choose. That's what I believe.
Yeah, and I think it's been that way for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Thousands of years.
It's true. It's true, because women are the gatekeepers. And for any woman out there looking for a competitive edge, like, I don't think it takes much to find a high quality, loyal, masculine, strong man.
Depending on the city you're in.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Very much.
Don't go to Vegas.
And I think at the end of the day, it's there's something to be said about the entire philosophy. If I could sum it up, when I looked at it, when I was involved with it, I don't know what it is now, but when I was involved with it, it seemed like the guys that I would meet that were in the pickup community viewed women as an obstacle to their own genitals. It's like she is an obstacle to her own genitals.
Oh, her genitals.
So I have to overcome her person to get to her genitalia. Does that make sense?
That's scary, yeah.
Yeah.
That's scary. You showed me a document, you shared it with me, that you've been working on for a lot of years, called The Perfect Husband Guide.
Yeah. That's a document I've spent 25 years developing. It's only a page long. It's like one page.
It's like nuggets of boom.
Yeah, just massive, brilliant insights that I've kind of got collected over 25 years. And I've kept that document running for a very long time. I added a line to it just like 2 days ago.
Which is?
I don't remember it. I have to bring it up.
So I actually have the perfect husband guide on my phone because you shared it with me. This one, the first one, I think I already love. Love her through things, not out of them.
Yeah.
Maybe I have a different interpretation than what you have, but what I'm hearing from this is that whatever she's going through, love her
Through it,
and not love her so that she can get out of it.
Yeah.
So just like loving the parts that are challenging.
Yeah.
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 And finding beauty in that. That's what I'm hearing in that. Is it
I
accurate?
think that's accurate.
The more you care, the stronger you can be. If you don't lead, she can't dance. I think this is such a massive thing nowadays, where I think the biggest challenge that I see in relationships, and I've talked to a lot of women recently, female friends of mine who have the same challenges in their relationships with it, which is we love each other, and they're married, they have kids, some of them. We love each other, but there's not passion anymore. And all of them are like go-getter type women who are leading, and some of them are making more than their husband, and they've kind of become roommates, and it seems like the polarity is lost, meaning that the masculine and feminine dance. It seems like if you don't lead, she can't dance. Leading is the masculine, dancing is the surrender, the feminine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to that. And I think like that statement boils down to not like, can I be this alpha male guy, or can I have all these characteristics, or I need to make her more feminine. It's, do I live my life in such a way that she is absolutely confident being a girl, not a woman, but like she can play and she can be full on feminine, not because I made her that way or I suggested she act like that, but I am so confident in who I am that it becomes contagious for her. So she can try on as much as she wants. And it allows her to kind of get back into that feminine, which is healthy according to, I think, 100 years of research or more.
Yeah.
And the last one here, having courage means you can say yes to your purpose and deepest truth. Having a backbone means you can say no to the things that don't fulfill it.
When did that come up for you? When did you have that insight?
2 days ago.
And like, was it just like you just went for a walk, or was there a moment, an interaction you had with your wife, or?
No, it wasn't even with my wife. It was like, if I do this in business, then I'm going to be a certain type of person at home. And I wound up saying yes to things that I shouldn't have said yes to, that don't fulfill me in any way. And I started doing business with someone that I don't really want to do business with. And I was like, I have courage to say yes to my passions. But at this moment, like, what was missing? So yeah, I did go on a long walk. We have like 8 miles of trails here on this property. So went on a really long walk, and that was it. There was courage and backbone are different things.
There's one about washing her hair.
Yeah.
Seems very specific, but it seems like there's a deeper truth.
I think it's just symbolic. Like you're quietly taking care of her in every way that you can. And that, I think I just added that in as the metaphor example for everything.
Yeah. There's also a book called The State of Affairs, which talks about why there's so much cheating nowadays. And it seems like it's nowadays, because you talked about the letting her be a girl, nowadays there's so much responsibility that women bear with not just children but also career and everything that puts them into a very masculine role. And just to be clear, man and woman both have masculine and feminine, but if we steer too much onto a side that's not our nature and that's individual, that's not just gender, but some men are more feminine at their core. It's much fewer, but it makes it very difficult to be intimate.
Yeah.
When you have a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, and I'm going to say something, maybe you'll delete this, but it'll probably piss people off. But just imagine the level of propaganda that had to be forcefully applied in order for women to believe that being a wife is a prison. And like raising children So you shouldn't raise your children. You should go to work, and then you can earn that money to pay someone else to raise your children. Like, that's the highest calling in the world, man. We do stupid, dumbass shit compared to what moms can do for the world. But somebody convinced some women, I'm not saying all of them, but somebody convinced women that that is oppression. And I get it, like a woman can go out and do everything that she wants to do. But the idea that that is oppression goes against every cell that we have developed over 10 million years of evolution. Everything. And we're not going to get so smart as a society that we're going to outthink a million years of evolution. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Biology hasn't caught up to the way we live today.
Yeah.
And it's not going to anytime soon.
Yeah.
Are you ever going to publish that Perfect Husband Guide?
Probably not.
Write a book about it?
No, I doubt it. I may just throw it on Twitter as a PDF or something.
I think you will. I think you'll write a book about it.
I hope so.
I can sense it.
Maybe.
On this podcast, we go out of our way, me and my co-hosts usually, now here with you, to give so much value that sometimes it physically hurts the person listening. One of the ways that we give value is sometimes I've just come up with $1 trillion business idea and we share it on the podcast.
Nice.
We just give it away. Just here you go. You can build $1 trillion business with it.
Yeah.
All we ask for in return is 1%. So that's only 10 billion if you make $1 trillion. Just if you go with the idea, if it works out, great. This one is a pitch to you that I have for you. All I ask for is 1%. I came up with the idea. You have all the tools and skills to do it. And you can let me know if you're in or not. But
okay.
I'm getting 1%, just one from it. Can you agree to that?
Yeah.
Okay, we have it recorded. This is actually the third one that we have. So I put together a little presentation for you.
Is this, are the people watching the YouTube going to see this?
Yes.
So they will understand that you did this in Comic Sans font.
Let's just get into it.
Okay, sorry.
Great. When an idea is great, it doesn't matter what font it is. I know you're really obsessed with fonts. I think, have you put out the video yet? No. But it's in the making. The history of fonts. Coming on Chase's channel in the future. In the past, I've come up with genius ideas like a new UFC division. Because it doesn't really target a female audience. They added Power Slap recently. And I thought, you know what? If we can get women into the sport, like what would be a viral phenomenon? It's pimple popping. So pimple popping live. Which I haven't heard back from Dana yet, but no question it would be a $1 trillion business. The other one was a spiritual app that fortune tells spiritual people what to invest in, and then we connect it with a rug pull meme coin app where you just tell them like, hey, there's something in the earth frequency, you should invest into this coin, and then we have a bunch of finance shark on the other side. This $1 trillion business idea is specifically for you. It's going to make you a ton of money.
Okay.
It's a massive opportunity, specifically for you. So what do all these massive money makers have in common? Number one, Scientology. Number two, People's Temple. I don't know if you've heard of it. You can maybe see a similarity between these two. Taylor Swift. They all make a ton of money.
Yes.
And they're all, can you see another similarity?
Tax exempt for the most part.
Tax exempt. They're all cults.
Okay.
Yeah. I've looked at the market. I've crunched the numbers, and it's continues to grow. It's a $100 billion industry. They're printing money. Scientology is worth $1.75 billion. Taylor Swift, $1.6 billion.
Yeah.
And who got most rich during the gold rush? It's people selling the shovels.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you see where we're going?
I think so.
The problem is for most cult leaders, this is just a AI generated image. It's what it came up with. I didn't come up with this. For most cult leaders, it's their first time. They're just trying to figure it out. Recruitment. How do I retain members? How do I position it? What's our USP?
Brainwashing.
Yeah. And oftentimes it ends in big mistakes, in some sort of scandal. You've studied dozens of cults. You know what works, you know what doesn't.
That's right. That's correct.
Introducing Cult Consulting LLC,
Wow.
where gurus are made. First, how do you feel about this?
I feel like it would need a non-disclosure agreement, a big one. But I'm on board so far.
Okay, good. The thing is, this is only the start. Because the first offering is just solving the big problem in the market of teaching cult leaders. And you just sharing the tactics. Yeah, and it's a 12-month coaching program. And the good thing is that we have a legal shield because we just tell them use it for good, and we're only consulting, but we're profiting off of it. But this is when the real moneymaker is coming in.
Oh, snap.
And it's indoctrinating them. We call it the first order. And it's the cult for cult leaders.
That's exactly what my abs look like. I like that.
Yes. So it's Operation Cult Squared. We make a simple promise. We double your cult. All we ask for is 50% share in your business.
Wow. That's a big share.
Yeah. But we double it. And knowing what you know about indoctrination, we create a cult for the cult leaders. How do we make that happen, Chase?
I feel like the best way to start out is to join a couple of these, you and me.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll kind of develop an initial prospectus report. And
how about you do that?
Okay.
Because I came up with the idea.
Good. And then we'll start a book club for every book ever written on L. Ron Hubbard and Charles Manson. And, put some stuff on some Post-it notes, have some coffee around, some tea.
Do you think you actually could start a cult?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What would be your first, go-to?
Well, I mean, there are some cults that are good.
For example?
I was in one for 20 years. It's called the United States Military.
Mm-hmm.
How do you have 95 dipshits that start basic training, and then 8 weeks later they're all like men and fighters?
Yes, and they don't get paid well.
Yeah, and they know what they're doing, and you agree, you sign all these oaths, you march together, you sing songs together. It's a cult. So I know a little bit about it, and I think it would be cool. But I think there's a lot of cults that are good. Some cults that are good. Cult does not mean dangerous. It just means that some of the things are done in secret. So I think it would be kind of cool to start a cult of modern spirituality to where there is no dedicated leader. And I think that would actually be beneficial.
Oh, okay. What would that look like?
Ushering in a global spiritual awakening at the fastest rate possible to where people were resistant to brainwashing because they read ancient texts and guidebooks. They worked on themselves. And we can just leave out all of the, hey, it's time to strip down naked and do acid. We just leave all that stuff out.
Keeping the baby, throwing out the bathwater.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. What would you teach? Is it just...
I don't think it'd be what we teach. It'd be what would we ask?
What would we ask?
Yeah, maybe we make it initially some mysticism, study some ancient texts, and maybe the goal is a search for truth and a search for absolute truth, which is unknowable, but a continuous improvement upon the ancient teachings. I think that would be good.
On a serious note, where do you think humanity is going? Do you think we're moving into that direction?
Yeah. I think there's a massive spiritual awakening happening.
Yeah.
Around the entire world. But with everything you've listed here, it just doesn't seem like a great idea. And for that reason, I'm out.
Okay. Well, somebody else who wants to build it, they may not have the skills that you have, but just 1%.
And then we'll take 50.
And then we'll take 50 after that. We don't tell them that part.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, thanks for inviting me to your house.
Yeah, it was fun.
Thanks for having me here. And let's shoot some guns.
Let's shoot some guns. The shoe will go around. Oh, no! Oh! So you want a little bit of a bend in your arm here, and a little bit forward. So everything in here is just made to get beat the hell up.
Yeah.
But it's 0 to 60 in about 30 seconds.